Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming here. Hope you're enjoying JNUC. I'm Tom, I'll be your host. And our next session is H.E.R.O. So please welcome Daniel Ross and Matt Jerome.
How's everyone's JNUC going? Good? Still awake? All right, good. So before we get started, how many of you are in your first year as a Jamf admin? Okay. How many of you, this is your first JNUC? Well, for all of you, welcome to the club. We're glad to have you. So I am Matt Jerome, Senior Engineer for Desktops at Fanatics.
I'm Daniel Ross, a Senior Apple Engineer at Teladoc Health. This is our first time presenting. Matt and I met back in 2022 through the Jamf Heroes program. If you're not familiar with it, look it up. You'll love it. We both inherited instances at some point in our career that we kind of wondered what was going on with them. Together, we both have, over the years, developed techniques, tips, tricks, how to help each other make each other's instances better, and also look good to our bosses. Mine's right there.
So we want to know, who's had these thoughts? I wonder why and how they did that? Who thought that was a good idea? It's not how I would do it, and that's not best practice. And you'll notice a little asterisk next to that.
A great example of a best practice in our org is that I use Superman to update my Macs, but Matt uses Nudge. Both of these are great products on their own, but sometimes an organization may need a little bit more reinforced update schedules. So one of the instances with Super is that it can actually force the updates, whereas Nudge will just keep gently nudging the user until they finally give in. This is really important for us, especially in the healthcare space, where PHI, PII are top priority to protect.
And just to reiterate, we've all heard the term best practice. I really don't like that term. To me, it's what's best for your organization. You might have regulatory requirements like PII or SOC 2 or SOX or HIPAA or other acronyms that I can't remember at this time.
Too many acronyms sometimes.
We're going to guide you through the H.E.R.O process so that when you take over a Jamf instance, or if you've recently gotten into one, you can get your instance healthy, efficient, reliable, and optimized in, we say no time, but realistically give yourself 6 months. And just as a note, all of these images were created with Microsoft Copilot. If you like them, we take full credit. If you don't, my name is Mick Levin. And it's worth mentioning that this process can be applied to any system you manage, not just Jamf. Here, what you'll need, what we think are the non-negotiables when you do this. Headphones to drown out noise. Beverage of your choice, caffeinated or not. Music or podcast to play in the headphones. And a spreadsheet app, because I'm going to be honest, process is going to suck a little bit. But when you have to manually catalog things, and I'm going to give you some tools to not manually catalog things, it can go slow, but it's also a really great learning opportunity. A more efficient way will be to use something like low profile with your configuration profiles, and we'll explain what that is.
So on the screen here, you're going to see a QR code. We'll leave it up there for a second. But one of the things that I feel every Mac admin should have is the tools of the trade. Something that's free, something that's reliable, and built by the community, for the community. So Rich Troughton, if you've met him or seen him over the years at JNUC, he produces some of the best scripts, best tips, tricks, how to do everything. So we often also at our organization use Jamf Replicator. It used to be called Jamf Migrator. It's now called Replicator. But we've used that to move stuff back and forth, especially between like your Sandbox to production, or even sometimes production to your Sandbox. Maybe you want to shore things up. Make sure they're one for one. That's a free app as well. When I first arrived at Teladoc, it was a mess. No VPP, no ADE, manual enrollments through the old Jamf package method. Nobody wants to do that. So we had to pretty much start from scratch with everything. It took a little bit of time, but in the end, it's been worth it. I'm still here. I'm speaking on stage, so it'll take time and patience.
So to make your environment healthy, there's really 4 things you want to look out for. You want to look at old policies, configuration profiles, and groups. You want to test your policies. Make sure they all actually work and do the thing you want them to do. If you do need to use packages, try to have only a single version of packages so there's no confusion of, Office 16.3.4.682 and version 683. Those numbers get really long really fast. And if you're going through your packages and scripts or DMGs, make sure there's notes on each one. At minimum, who updated it and what date they updated it. Makes your life a lot easier. You say we should do this, but how do we test those things to make sure it's healthy? Go through a setup. Don't do anything, just grab a computer off the shelf, run through it, and what I like to do is hook it up to another computer and use QuickTime to record it, or if you have a video capture, or if it's a user-initiated, you can do a QuickTime recording, and that will allow you to review it later and pause it, see, oh, this notification appeared here, this amount of time, and it looks like it's referencing this policy. Like I said, make sure any notifications, pop-ups that appear, if any unexpected user interaction is needed, because when they made that policy, they may have been working off one OS version, but in another OS version, it sends a pop-up. And like I said, if possible, use a capture card, QuickTime, so you can review it later, and we will continue. Logs are your friend. Please use them. They'll show you the basic things. Did your policy run? Did anything fail? Did you have any, I wonder what happened there moments? What order did things run in? Because by default, Jamf policies run 0 to 9 and A to Z. So I've seen people like put 0.1 and then what it does, or 0.2. We're going to get into some tools that will help you customize that. Consider connecting your endpoints to a SIM if possible, because Jamf does truncate their logs after, I think, 250
I think it's 25,000K.
I knew there was a 2, 5, and a 0 in there. Couldn't remember what it was. But if you're using some tools that produce a lot of logs, it can get hard to read very quickly. So if you can connect it to a SIM or some kind of collector for logs, it'll really help you out.
So what about packages and DMGs? We've all been there. We've had to deal with them ourselves. Typically, as much as possible, and it's going to sound kind of crazy, especially when you've got this beautiful package from your vendor, try and avoid them. One of the reasons why, it's another place to update something in your instance. So in some cases, a tool may require it. Qualys is a great example. CrowdStrike's another, because you may not be updating those as often. Maybe your SecOps team is actually updating CrowdStrike behind the scenes, so maybe do the package you put in a Jamf quarterly. Some companies do N-1, things like that. We love Installomator, and if you have been in some sessions, you've probably heard it. You're probably wondering, why isn't just Installomator the whole JNUC? It is worth investing in. Other tools like Jamf Setup Manager, you've probably heard a lot about. That's another great tool. It also happens to use Installomator during that startup process. So it's now another tool in your arsenal that's free. Other ones, the Jamf apps, if you haven't already tried them out, the Jamf app catalog is fantastic and it's growing. I've met some of the team that manages it here and they're still adding more. They were doing some while they were here, in fact, so it's kind of crazy. The other thing with those now with the blueprints, you'll be able to use the DDM versions of those, not just the MDM versions, which sometimes wouldn't land right away. Now DDM, a lot better performance.
It is worth saying that with, I think, one exception, it's hard to include Jamf apps in your initial computer setup process, just because they rely on DDM, and we don't currently have much of a mechanism outside of the macOS onboarding with self-service to deploy those at computer setup.
Once you've backed everything up using those scripts from earlier, double check everything, triple check it, in fact. Make sure you're putting it in a safe spot that your whole team has access to as well. Date it, archive it, make notes of why you backed this up. All kinds of things like that are going to be useful later on when you're wondering when this was implemented. Maybe you can reference an old ticket that it's related to. Prune by Leslie Helu, known as Big Rat. You'll probably see a lot of scripts like mobile to local written by them. Grab that because it helps you find policies, smart groups, configurations,
groups, profiles
that aren't scoped to anything. Why do you have them? Get rid of them, but back them up first. You'll regret it if you don't.
Yes. And once you've done all that, you can move on to being efficient. So we're making it so this process is efficient as half the battle. You don't want to continuously fight with a process. You want to let your work do your job. Okay, you can do that. Be lazy. And you can focus on more fun things.
The images crack me up. But yeah, you don't want to continue fighting the processes. Let it do itself. Let it do its job for you. Be sure to monitor it, have your team informed of how these things work. But it's frankly more fun to be able to do other things. Or maybe you have bigger picture projects that are needing your attention. You don't want to have to be monitoring patch policies. And did I upload that package? Oh, it failed. It's too big. Oh, new one came out. Google Chrome updated for the 5th time this week. Those kind of things.
So many apps now require a configuration of some type. We've seen it, Platform SSO requires it, CrowdStrike requires it. So many apps require a separate profile to work really properly. You'll see this when you did your dry run, and you'll often see it if the package deploys before the profile is installed. Most admins want as few pop-ups and notifications as possible. The easiest way to do that when you have a config profile is to deploy the configuration profile with your PPPC, TCC, and other acronyms, and then have a smart group that checks for that profile and scope the installer or policy to that smart group that detects if the profile is there. That way, it can only install if the profile is present, so it mutes those pop-ups, doesn't show the notifications, and you get a more smooth process. And it allows you to be hands-off, or as I like to call it, be a little lazy. We like some of these tools because they are a repeatable process every time, and this whole process starts at the beginning. SYM, or Set Up Your Mac, it runs reliably at enrollment or first check-in. You have your choice. It has a lot of customizable options to set up your Mac for the first time. It works off policy custom triggers to call various policies. So it runs a policy that runs a script, and that script has a lot of custom triggers built into it. If you haven't met Dan Snelson, the gentleman who wrote this, he is probably one of the nicest people you will ever meet. Also has some of the best documentation I've ever seen. It also has a helper app, so you don't have to really script much because it's a 3,500 line script. So this helper app will allow you to just put in what you want at various locations. It's called SYM Helper or Set Up Your Mac Helper, and it uploads the script via the API. Daniel mentioned Jamf Setup Manager, and what I love about Jamf Setup Manager is it can run prior to the initial login. So you do your enrollment and the setup assistant, and then it pops up. It does have Installomator built in so that you decrease the amount of policies that actually have to run, so it decreases your tech infrastructure. It's built and maintained by Jamf. It runs off a configuration profile so that there's really very little scripting involved. And another thing that I love about it, it has live logging built in. So I've gotten a lot of questions in the past from my techs that set up the computers, how do I know what's happening outside of, okay, it's installing that. You can't really see it until the policy is done, but with Setup Manager, you can see it in real time, along with some other options like links to your help desk, or there's a QR code where people can get help. Also shows your networking, how long it's been running, battery, things like that.
And kind of going back to that Set Up Your Mac script, when the truncated logs, if Set Up Your Mac fails, it hits that 25,000 K limit. So you've lost valuable data at that point.
We wanted to give you some tips on how to make things more efficient. Installomator is a big one. Don't install Microsoft 365 using the monolith package that has Word, PowerPoint, Teams, etc. built into it. What tends to happen is you'll get TLS download errors from the Microsoft end. So, and if the package fails to download, you essentially have to start all of those over. I've had much greater success if I have separate policies for Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Teams, etc. Debug mode is your friend, especially with things like Set Up Your Mac and Jamf Setup Manager. They have a debug mode so you can see exactly what's going to happen for the most part before you put it into production. Just an add-on to Jamf Setup Manager. You can actually make the profile in Jamf, download it, put it on your machine, on any machine, and run Setup Manager without an MDM. So you can run it and quickly have a repeatable process. You could even make it in something like iMazing or an IDE and continually edit it so that your testing goes quicker. Your Sandbox is also your friend. Who is a Jamf Cloud customer? Okay.
Oh, wow.
Who has a Sandbox? Who doesn't have a Sandbox? Find your Jamf rep while you are here. Every cloud customer gets a free Sandbox. It will be your best friend, and it's okay if you break things in the Sandbox.
Yeah, never test in production. We've firsthand seen what that looks like.
We've totally never tested anything in production.
Thankfully, not our team, but
You're not the first person or the last person to have a question or a problem. I'm sure you've all heard of the Mac Admin Slack by now. It is the most helpful community, along with things like Jamf Nation, to work through these. If you're not on Mac Admin Slack, visit the booth. They'll sign you up, or on any computer, go to macadmins.slack.com.
And definitely Jamf
right
Nation as well, too. There's opportunities to learn, participate. There's also user groups in there, which are growing. I forget, I think it's around 30 or so. 57, wow. There's a lot more.
So if you couldn't hear that, there's now 57 user groups globally.
Yeah. We're all tinkers, but sometimes we want it to be so perfect, so badly, it makes the task harder. The Mac admins community for me has really allowed me to drive my career forward, but also use proven tools, or in some cases, help build those tools, give feedback, grow my own tools. I think we've all been there. Matt's going to talk about that here in a second. But designing things is fun and cool, but sometimes you're going to get in the weeds. Use those tools. Make that time to automate those things, and then you can come back. Maybe you've got an idea that's just not in Jamf Setup Manager yet. It's an open source project. You can add to it. You can even fork a lot of these projects and make them your own.
Just going back to the Mac Admin Slack for a second, a lot of the developers of these projects that we're going to mention are on the Mac Admin Slack, and they are ready and willing to help you out. So here's some tools that we just really enjoy.
Nudge is one that has been around for a while. It's a great tool. It works for a lot of organizations where you don't maybe need to enforce that software update at a certain time. It can also be used for other things sometimes. Superman's one we prefer. It's worked very well for our organization. It lets us display a dialog. The user chooses when their install happens. It also captures the user's password, keeps it locally, so when that deadline does hit, my boss is very happy with those reports he pulls. Installomator is another great one. Again, you're going to hear us talk about those a lot. You're going to hear them in other sessions. It's an invaluable tool. We've actually contributed back to it. Teladoc Health has some apps that we produce. We've actually added them to the Installomator catalog. You too can do that as well. We have a lot of apps that sometimes just not in there, obscure app that your engineers may use. You can add those back. It's actually kind of a cool thing to say, oh, we added that in there. App Auto-Patch, I always almost say App Auto-Package, but it's App Auto-Patch is another one. Uses Installomator, runs locally on the machine, so you don't have to have as many smart groups in your Jamf instance. Less smart groups make better performance.
And the nice thing about App Auto-Patch and the newer version, it runs on a launch daemon. So you can set its run every 30 days, and it has Installomator built in, so any app that can get updated with Installomator, it'll do it. So personally, mine runs every 30 days. So I don't have to worry about, okay, is the latest version in Jamf? Do I have it? But with Installomator, everything's just up to date because it just curls the latest installer from the vendor.
It has a really nice user interface as well. So if you go check it out, you'll see it's got just kind of tells the user what's going on. Something that's big.
This is a little tool that I wrote one day. I was actually listening to the Mac Admins podcast. We're talking about the Root 3 support app, which is great. Personally, I didn't want to have another launch agent on the machine for really a variety of reasons. So I'm like, I wonder if I can script this. And I just took it a little challenge. This runs out of self-service, and I gave it to my help desk so they can see, okay, are we meeting all of our base metrics for is the computer healthy? And in the second image, when it's done, you'll get a little question mark down by the OK. And if there are any red icons, it means the check failed. And the question mark shows you what the metric should be. And that QR code goes to my GitHub where these can be found. And if you notice the last line says what the OS should be, those pull from the SOFA feed online through Mac Admins that keeps track of all the different Mac OS updates. Another one, really in the spirit of being lazy, the Jamf binary runs as root, so it's an admin. Who has their users as standard users versus admins? Okay, a lot of people. So it can be kind of a pain to go into terminal and get a sudo and all the things. So I wrote a script using Swift Dialog called the Jamf Assistant to run commands as a standard user because the script itself is running as root. So you check the box you want, and there is update inventory, run by policy ID, custom trigger, what I just call a general policy check, and you run it, and it brings up a dialog, just like you were in terminal. I'm looking to add management commands into there. Again, it's on my GitHub, and this just keeps running in a while loop. Keeps running in a loop until you hit exit. So if you need to run a policy and then an inventory, or an inventory then a policy, you can just keep this going. So in step one, we made it healthy by getting rid of items that we no longer need. Step two, we made it efficient and make sure things install in the correct sequence. Step three, we used proven and reliable tools to get our job done, but what about that fourth step, optimized? Well, in true Jamf fashion, there is no step four. So if you've done steps 1 through 3, you're optimized, you're done, we are done. We'd love to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, guys. And I apologize if we don't see where people are.
The light's really bright,
light
so we
is
might go like
just
this to try
blind,
to see
yeah.
you.
But yeah, if anyone has any questions, anything technical, or even just, hey, how'd you get the buy-in from people on things?
Or mistakes that we've made that we hope you don't make.
On one of your slides up there, you said don't install the Microsoft 365 suite. Will you explain that or expand on that?
The Microsoft 365? Yeah, so I used to install, using Installomator, the Microsoft 365 suite as one package. And I kept getting alerts that the policy failed. So I did a bunch of digging, and I kept seeing the same TLS download errors. And in the logs for that policy, I was able to trace it back to it was failing on the Microsoft end of downloading such a large package. So when I went to try to fix it, I actually just broke it out into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Teams, and the success was dramatic. I went to almost 100% success rate versus like a 70% success rate.
And kind of going off of what Matt was saying, we're an international company, so we do have some users in Argentina where internet connection's not always the greatest. By dividing those up, instead of that user now still having to re-download Office, we can chunk it up. We haven't moved to that yet ourselves. We've not had the same errors that Matt has, but again, that file's getting bigger every week. I feel Microsoft's just putting more into it, so.
So following up on that, did you break the individual items out into discrete policies, or did you keep them as multiple packages in the same policy?
Individual policies. So I had a policy that was, when I was using Set Up Your Mac, I've switched to Setup Manager, but they both can apply to this. For Set Up Your Mac, I was using custom triggers, install Word, install PowerPoint.
Okay, thank you.
How often do you go back out to GitHub and get the most current Installomator script? Is there like a regular cadence? Do you do it quarterly? Or if you have something that works, you kind of roll with it?
So I think the question was how often do you update your Installomator script? I try to keep an eye on it on when they update it. And if the update included apps that I need or bug fixes that I need, then I'll update it. So the way I'm going to come at this answer with two different approaches. If you're using something like Set Up Your Mac, which is a script within Jamf that you put in, and Installomator script within Jamf, you'll want to check it more regularly, see if the apps are updated. If you're using things like Jamf Setup Manager and App Auto-Patch, there's really no need to, because every new version of Setup Manager, I have to get those words right because they're really similar, will include the latest version of Installomator and App Auto-Patch. I would have to double check. I can't remember, to be honest, if it includes the latest in its PKG or if it references the latest on their GitHub. I can't remember. It's one of those two, but it'd be easy enough to find out.
And for us, for an example, part of building an app and submitting it to Installomator ourselves is sometimes those are in like a PR state or a pull request. So you're still waiting for the Installomator team to kind of go behind and add that into the master script, maybe publish an update or a new app. We'll put that into ours. We have a cloning button that we just clone the script, we mark a date. So for instance, one of my teammates needs to insert app here into our master script. We're not waiting for Installomator to do it. Maybe it's a couple weeks, couple months. So we track that. You can also put it in your own GitHub for log consistency and tracking who made changes. And I think that's what we're moving to ourselves because, again, a lot of fingers in the Jamf. You don't want to mess up and somebody else's code got deleted while you were putting yours in.
Awesome, thank you.
So we consistently have issues with two separate packages, one being 365, so your advice on that helps. How would you handle like the Creative Cloud Adobe package? Because we had the same problem with it where it times out.
So it's hard to hear a little bit. So it was how to like download a new package?
No, Adobe, like
Oh,
Creative
Adobe.
Cloud, with all
Okay.
the little bits and pieces, kind of like 365. How would you handle something like that?
Adobe's gonna Adobe. We've all learned that.
Yeah.
Are you using Creative Cloud?
Yes.
Okay, what I did was I put Creative Cloud, the installer from Installomator, in self-service, let my users log in and get the apps they need. Because they're massive. And internet bandwidths vary, so you never quite know. And I don't want to install Illustrator, Photoshop, InDesign for people that may not need them. If they only need Photoshop, I want to let them only get Photoshop. It's not just a matter of bandwidth, it's also a matter of storage on the machine or any plugins needed. Adobe gets really complicated really fast. So honestly, what I would do is talk to the team that uses those end users, and say, hey, there's some technical limitations with Adobe. It's large, downloads fail. How do you feel about if we just give you Creative Cloud on demand and you grab what you need? Because it's also a matter of licensing. You don't want to be using up licenses that you just don't need to.
And for us, we do the same thing. Our global service desk handles the Adobe licensing, and traditionally it's done through the Creative Cloud portal. We just put Adobe Acrobat, Reader, and the DC product in our self-service. We don't put the whole suite in.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's just too much it's crazy.
Looks like we got one on the side over here.
Do you have a policy naming scheme that helps you bracket out different things. So I put updates starting with B, other stuff like that.
Yeah, I do. I won't speak for Daniel because I don't know his setup. If it's something that changes a Mac OS setting, I'll do Mac OS space what it does, and then right after that is the OS it applies to. So if it starts in Mac OS 14, I'll do 14 plus. If it's only for Mac OS 14, I'll just do 14. If it's a security app, it's security dash, same thing, name of it, and then the OS that follows it. I do roughly the same thing for config profiles.
And we're the same as well. But we didn't used to have it, now we do. And that goes for Windows too. It's applied globally to whatever we're doing, whether it be Windows or Mac, because we do both. So we do it with configuration profiles. To a degree, we do dev tags. So when we are deving something out, we don't put our dev tags on configuration profiles. As you know, if you make a change to it, you have to push it all back out. So we strictly just put it on things like the policy or the package name or something along those lines. We don't want to overcomplicate having to go fix a smart group that was looking for a dev tag. So it's a pain to have to go fix those things. So we just keep it on our policies, but we'll do dev, UAT, wherever it is, but it's Mac OS, iOS. We even do regions. So our pre-stages are all named that way as well.
And something to know about smart groups. So if you're scoping a configuration profile to a smart group, if it's, I don't know, CrowdStrike settings is the name of the profile in your configuration profile, but you also have CrowdStrike settings in a profile that's installed is CrowdStrike. If you change the name of the profile, it does not change it in your smart group. So that where you put the name of the profile is just a text field. It's not like a symlink or a hard link or anything like that. What it happens is Jamf Pro is just looking for what's in that text field. Does it match anything in the profile record of the machine, in the Jamf Pro record? So if you change it in the profile name, you have to find what smart groups it's in to change it there as well.
And Jamf won't tell you that.
Now
You'll find out the hard way. You will find out very quickly if something gets unscoped because of that.
Ask me how I learned that later.
The other thing too, kind of going back to installing software, this is just something that we've learned very, very hard way, and then in other cases, beautiful relationships. Before you buy any software, talk to other customers, what their experience is, and learn what their Mac support is. I won't say names, but there's a particular product that it's been abysmal. And we've got other vendors. Here's how you do it. Here's all the instructions. Here's the configuration profile in case you want to reference ours. And they have a good Mac support team. That is the biggest thing I can say. When you don't have that support and you're having to figure it out on your own, it is a miserable experience.
Thanks for the talk, guys.
Thanks.
Just a question about organizations that have security that block vendor-specific domains like GitHub and even like software vendors like Adobe, where you can't use Installomator because essentially Installomator goes out and grabs it from the vendor's site. And security won't whitelist those domains. Specifically, GitHub is one example that a lot of them won't. What are your tips on? Do you just do traditional packaging from that point onwards, or is it other?
You'll probably end up doing traditional packaging. If it's not an Installomator, see if you can get it in there. Most vendors will have a static URL of where the latest installer will be. So that's one way to go. See if the app auto-updates. So if it just has its own updater. Also work with your security team. This is one of the biggest tips I can give anyone. Sometimes we view IT leadership, security, help desk as adversaries. It's a lot easier to view them as allies because everyone just wants everything to be safe, secure, and reliable. So it's all a matter of how do we get there meeting everyone's criteria? Those are the best pieces of advice I can give you. You might end up just packaging it. It's kind of a pain, but it's also, this is not a perfect science. I wish it was, but we use the tools we have.
Awesome, thanks.
Perfect.
We've got about 10 minutes if there's no more questions, or else.
So you're talking about like, so CrowdStrike is a great example. It has a lot of pop-ups, or other apps like Zoom or other apps will ask if you can use the downloads folder, like calendar, all those.
Or a network filter.
Network filters for VPN clients. So traditionally, you always are going to want those. The vendor should always know what those are and be able to provide them to you, or some sort of documentation so you can build your own. That's also where we recommend installing those apps as part of your development process. Go through it yourself, because you'll be able to, as time goes, figure out what those keys are. A PPC utility or PPC utility from Jamf will let you build your own. So you can say, hey, allow a standard user to activate these kind of things. But yeah, you'll want to have those on the computer first, because then when your smart group tells the policy, hey, I'm already there, now those users don't see anything. It's a silent install in the background. And no chance for them to say no, or I don't know what this is. So not the greatest descriptions on those pop-ups either sometimes. Yeah. They're pretty terrible, yeah.
I think that's an important, you breezed by it real fast, but
Yeah.
that's
So
an important, yeah.
the workflow would be install the profile, create a smart group that says profile name is whatever that profile name, go to your policy that deploys X app, scope that policy to the smart group you just made. That way the policy can't run unless the profile is there.
Yep. And this is just from my experience. Your experience may vary. I heavily recommend dividing up your configuration profiles. Do not smash everything into one. Even if your vendor tells you to, ask why. Because if you ever have to change one thing in that configuration profile, you have to change everything, even if it's working just fine. License keys are a great example. Divide those kind of things up. Divide your login UI items, whatever it is, just divide them up, label them that way, and then use a smart group to say, hey, are all these groups there, or all these profiles there?
Another fun tip with that, if you have let's say you use something like 802.1x, or you predefine your Wi-Fi networks, you might want to put your Wi-Fi items and your Ethernet items in different profiles. Not that I ever removed both at once, because I had them in the same profile by accident and cut off network access to a whole country. That totally never happened. But yeah, divide them up. That way you have a safety net.
Yep. Cool. Thank you, guys.
Anything else? We'll be here for the rest of the 7.5 minutes or until we get kicked out of here. But thank you guys for coming. I hope this was helpful.
Thank you, guys.